Part 4. This is going to include 3 elements of health, and they are sleep, hormones, and diet. This is a very in-depth topic with those 3 things being related, but the point I wanted to get across and talk about with these guys here today is how they're related, what they do for each other, and how they affect each other as those 3 things get kind of messed with and monitored throughout the day. So Dr. Sotis, you want to take sleep and go with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about, I think just kind of the overall, kind of hormonal levels, in the body, one of the things that I try to talk to my patients about is, the body is really designed to find that kind of, homeostasis is the big word we learn in medical school, but that steady state. And so, even under acute stress, the body is really looking to find a way to get back to a non-stress situation, right? Even though the body can respond pretty significantly, fight or flight or the adrenal response, our body can't maintain that, isn't designed to maintain that for too long. And so we're trying to find that steady state. And so I think, like, when you think of conceptually what sleep is and does for our body, I mean, that's really what we're trying to do, because we can push ourselves and any of us who've been to college know and who've studied for a midterm, we could we can push it, and then your body just crashes, and you're just like, you can't do that. You can't do that indefinitely. So the way that I think sleep really is designed to help recharge our bodies. And certainly we talk about some of the changes with aging, and we do see that even as we age, the need for the amount of sleep that we would typically need at 30 or 40 changes when you're 60 and 70 for sure. But it's such a I think a key aspect of that kind of recharging and steady state in the body that we're looking for. But yet probably as we age, you could attest to this, like one of the most difficult things for people to actually get. Like how many people, aside from maybe back pain and upper respiratory infections, not during COVID times, sleep disturbance, probably right up there for, I would say one of the top 5 that we see all the time.
It's really high.
People just, and there's a variety of things. You could spend an hour with a patient just trying to figure out, why is your sleep disturbed? And there could be a variety of reasons, right? I mean, there's stress, there's all kinds of, chronic illnesses that cause issues with sleep, pain, there's so many things that can affect our sleep. And so trying to get underneath that and figure out, okay, one, how do we help improve your sleep by targeting these things that are disrupting your sleep? And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes we can't identify what it is that's causing sleep disturbance, because sometimes it is, some kind of chronic illness that is really kind of detrimental to their sleep. But what I think people realize, when you look at something even as simple, if you will, as obstructive sleep apnea. So patients who are having issues with that, and then they don't sleep well, and they have excessive daytime sleepiness, they don't know what's going on, they get a sleep study, they figure out they've got obstructive sleep apnea, and they get a CPAP machine, and for the most part, most of those people come back and they're just like, I can't believe how different life is.
Night and day, right?
Yeah.
No,
it's amazing.
I
can't believe what I was missing,
Right.
because they realize now their body is getting the sleep that it needs, and they feel restored. Right? And so then that just leads into everything we just talked about what they can do during the day, the motivation that they have to stay fit or to do activities. Whereas before, it is depressing really when you don't sleep, because you really see those two that go hand in hand. The people who have sleep issues, who wrestle with some of that, and you look at, not just sleep, but even the dietary things that kind of control our serotonin levels, and how all of that is, really works together. The body is such an amazing just mystery of how it is just how every component relates to one another.
One lever affects the other side of it. You'd never guess. It's everything seems to be connected. True. On that note, I have a daughter, and as we step into the diet, segment with Dr. Vincent here. When she eats a birthday cake and spends all day, playing and spinning her wheels, about 8 o'clock, something starts to happen and she starts to break down. And so all this stress her body has gone through from eating a high sugar diet, being very physically fatigued, really the only thing that's ever worked to reset her or to get my life back in order is for her to go to sleep, right? And so if I can get her to sleep, that to me, I've seen literally in my own children, it is the healing mechanism for those adverse things that our body goes through high stress situations. And I consider eating bad foods high stress. I mean, you're stressing your body's internal system on trying to process that food. So with that in mind, diet, you want to talk about, maybe some food?
And again, it goes hand in hand or overlaps, however you want to put it, because it definitely affects sleep. We did some diet things as far as the different types of diets folks have, whether it's keto, the 30-day diet, Whole30, paleo diet, and all of those types of things. And really, good foods are important, as that elicited too, because what happens, not only just the types of foods, but the timing of it all. Just to kind of piggyback on sleep, regardless of food, I tell my patients, hey, try to eat at a decent hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours before you want to go to sleep. Your body kind of can't do two things at once efficiently to the point where you don't want to have a meal, even if it's healthy, and then go to sleep on it, because then your body's, to kind of restore, it's too busy digesting the food that you just ate.
It's working, right? Your body's trying to work.
Exactly. It's trying to do something. So, try to eat, a couple hours ahead of time. But to the point of just good and healthy foods, you really don't want to eat foods with a ton of preservatives in them. You don't want to eat a whole bunch of processed carbohydrates or processed sugars. Those are things that really weigh you down. Yes. When you know that you're having a good diet, just a ballpark, just kind of how good is my diet, you should feel more uplifted and feel energy after you eat. Not necessarily that you have to go lay down on a couch and go take a nap somewhere. That is not a good indicator that your diet is very good. Your bowel movements that patients love to talk about, they tend to be more regular when you're having a relatively balanced diet. And regardless of diet, like I tell my patients, the best diet is not necessarily a 30-day trial or a 6-week situation. It's one of those things where you can do it for a lifetime. It's a lifestyle change to where that is something that you can do regularly. So whatever your diet of choice is, keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, whatever, if you can do it for a long time, then that's great. And then we can work on whatever is necessary otherwise, whatever the goals are, leaning, weight loss, toning, or what may have you, bulking up or whatever. But those principles are how I like to approach diet as a whole. And then you start to kind of, once you get the goals set, kind of go down the different options that they would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about, I think diet and exercise together, a lot of times we feel like, well, if I'm staying, active and I'm exercising a ton, then it doesn't matter what I eat, right?
True.
Right. So my wife will always say, you can't out-exercise a really bad diet.
No.
Like a
and,
really
and,
crappy
and
diet.
abs made in the kitchen and all sorts of other kind of acronyms, because sometimes you don't even have to exercise as much and still get what you want if your diet's correct. And that's and to the point of feeling better. To the point of sleep too. It's just, people feel better when they don't have a ton of caffeine on board, or they don't have a ton of processed sugars and carbs that they are really having to work that much longer to eat. And then the sleep apnea picture, that's, just a roll and roll. Folks that are obese all the way out here that have sleep apnea, then they tend to get rid of those if they lose some weight. And it's just really, really awesome to just kind of see how those two things overlap, obviously on the success story end. And then if you come to us with some issues, then we gotta get on the ball and
do some hard work.
Exactly.
The thing with diet, it is very hard work. It takes discipline and it takes commitment to those things. Absolutely. And broccoli doesn't taste that great, right? No matter how you cook it. No. It requires some discipline to get that down sometimes. In my role, when people ask me, what should I be doing? What diet should I be following? You mentioned a few of them. That's a loaded question, and it has some controversy behind some of those recommendations, right? I've found that steering any of those populations towards one statement has kind of been the best bang for my buck, and it's try to, no matter what you're following, if you can eat foods with no ingredients, you're going to hit the mark every time. Eat the whole food as the food exists itself, whether that's any of those diets we mentioned, but keep it simple, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely. And, I think the other component too is when you try to look at not just what we eat, not just staying active, not just getting the proper sleep, but really understanding kind of how the whole, machine, that would be one, analogy we can use, how the whole machine works together. Because you look at, like, even you touched on hormone levels and how that relates to all of this, because I think that we really can stress the body, like you said, by what we eat. And we talk about, in our clinics, we talk about eating foods that create an inflammatory state in the body, which really creates a stressful state in the body, which really creates a lot of stress on your hormone system. So you have this kind of adrenal overload, so to speak. And so over time, right, you see that is detrimental in the whole machine, as you're talking about the acute stress that the body goes under, but then that just becomes chronic stress and chronic, you see these patients who have chronic adrenal, issues. And I think as we think about, it's probably worth diving, much deeper into, in general when we're talking about chronic medical illness, because you think about these situations where we have that kind of sad, a standard American diet, right? That sad diet, where great. Over time, right, we probably don't even understand the dynamic of what that does to us over 10, 15, 20 years in terms of our hormones and how that relates to, our sleep, how it relates to our diet, how it relates to our body, whether that's deconditioning of our body over time. You look at, as we become more obese as a nation, as a people, and just the implications of that pro-inflammatory state, and then how that relates to, our overall adrenal stress. That's a doctorate right there, trying to figure that out.
It is. And the body gets used to what it gets used to, which is really unfortunate in the unhealthiest, sad diet type of terms.
Mm-hmm. Just keep sliding down that bad path, right?
First in med school, it's like, okay, if you gain 3 pounds every year, everybody was like, oh, just 3 pounds. 10 years, that's 30 pounds. And nobody got any taller since high school. Yeah. So you're now sitting here 30 pounds overweight in 10 years, and it's just, you got to work it back.
It doesn't seem that bad.
It doesn't seem that bad until you look back and it's like.
If you want to come borrow a 30-pound medicine ball for me to walk around with,
right.
You can see how bad it could be, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's the whole kind of frog in the boiling water kind of analogy,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
That it's just, you don't even realize it. Year after year
until
after year.
the high school reunion, right?
Until the high school reunion.